All right, so let's begin. Um, Assuming everyone can see and hear me. So let's begin. So today we are doing a workshop on introduction to SQL. So the things that we'll be walking through today, so we'll be covering installation of, we'll be using MySQL to do all of our work today. So we'll be covering installation of MySQL, MySQL shell. We'll be talking about data types supported in SQL. We'll be talking about data definition statements, about essentially how to, what are the operations that will help you create a database, alter a database, delete a database, create tables, and things like that. After that, we'll be moving on to, data manipulation statements, essentially how to insert into the database, update rows, delete rows, and finally we'll be looking at a whole lot of data query operations, how to extract data, how to sort data, how to filter data, how to page data. So let's begin. So let's start with installation of MySQL. So if you go to www.mysql.com, there's a downloads link, and it's probably I should have sent this out earlier. With benefit of hindsight, I realized that this was a mistake. I probably should have sent this out earlier, so you could have had a chance to install MySQL. If you have any other SQL installation, that's also fine. Microsoft SQL or Oracle or PostgreSQL, any of them will work. There might be a couple of syntactical differences here and there, but if you have any other installation, that's also fine. So you can go on MySQL installation. So for folks who already have a SQL edition installed, can you please reply on the live chat and let us know whether you have anything installed or not? Okay. Okay. So I would assume that everyone has SQL Server or MySQL installed, and we'll proceed from there on. If you don't, please reply on the YouTube live chat. So on the YouTube video, on the right hand side to that, you will be seeing a chat window. So that's the way you can interact with us. Unfortunately, audio interactivity is not available on YouTube Live. So the chat window is the only way to interact with the SQL Code team as of this point. All right. So assuming everybody has MySQL installed, I'll go ahead with the presentation. So as I said, we can go in install MySQL from dev.mysql.com/download, and essentially you'll have to download three things. You'll have to download the MySQL community server, which is the SQL Server installation itself. Then you'll have to download the MySQL shell, which is essentially the client, the command line that helps you interact with the server. And finally, you will have to install this is optional. You can install the MySQL Workbench, which is essentially the client, the GUI client, the UI client, something similar to SQL Studio, if you are familiar with Microsoft SQL Server. After this, you will download an instance of a database that MySQL has provided as a sample. So an example would be go to dev.mysql.com/doc slash index dash other dot html. I could just show it to you. On the downloads page, go to developer zone. Actually, on downloads, sorry, back to downloads. Oh, they've changed. Okay, on documentation, click on more, and if you come down here, you'll see something called as world database. So download the world database and install it. You can install it just by running the there's a .SQL script that you will be running. So you go ahead and download it. And to look up the setup installation instructions, you can just click here, HTML setup guide and installation, and that will show you how to install it. So essentially, once you've installed MySQL, you'll be connecting using -u root. So essentially helps you connect as root to MySQL, and then -p, which will ask you for the password. Once you are done with that, just go ahead and execute the world.sql. We'll extract world.sql from the zip file, and you'll call, once you're inside the MySQL shell, you'll call source world.sql. Okay. So if you have proceeded this far, just let us know on YouTube live window, the chat window. Anybody encountering any issues? All right, we'll wait one more minute for folks to finish their installation. All right. So as you know, the SQL Server contains a collection of tables, and each table contains columns or fields. So fields essentially describe the data type, which so essentially it is describing the data type which the column can take in. As examples, the columns can either be of type, the numeric types which support integers, decimals, floats, doubles, or even bit flags, or it can support date time related types, so date, time, timestamp, etc. Or it can support string types. So it can take a char, it can take a varchar, text, enum, etc. So the char has a fixed width. Varchar has a variable width, as the name suggests. So let's say you declare varchar with 80 characters, and you only you define a name. You enter a name like, let's say, my name Mithun Shanbal, which doesn't take up 80. So that leads to like space optimization in how the strings are actually stored. So varchar is like definitely preferable over char. Text is when you have like really large strings to store. And I think at least on SQL Server, Microsoft SQL Server, you could store up to 8,000 characters at a time, and easy to like search and sort through them. Enums, of course, define a set, and then we'll walk through each of these examples going forward. Okay, so let's start. Let's start the shell. And you will start by connecting to MySQL. So you will be typing in MySQL dash U root, uh, and then or whatever your username is. It definitely won't be root if you're. I think it won't be root if you're on Windows. I'm not entirely sure. Dash T. So you'll be asked to enter a password. Enter the password that you configured. So now I'm connected. So everyone with me so far? Anyone having trouble connecting up to the SQL server? All right. So again, if for some reason MySQL is not installed, like it says command not found, then it likely means that MySQL is not on the path. So we recommend that you add it on the path. So once that is done, you can do a command called show databases. Okay. So this will show you all the databases that are actually installed on your machine. So we downloaded the world database from the MySQL sample. So as you can see, it's there. So switching back, so to list all the databases on your server, you just do a show databases. Let's say you want to create your own database, right? So we would do create database, and let's call it MyDB1, and that's it, and that's all it takes to create a database. So it's an empty database, of course, but it's as simple as that. Just create database MyDB1, and a database called MyDB1 will now show up in your list. Show databases, and as you see, MyDB1 has now shown up. Okay. If you're not sure whether a database already exists or not, you can use the create database if not exists. So essentially, if the database doesn't exist, it will go ahead and create one. If it exists, then it will not error out. So it's a simple optimization. To use an existing database, to connect up to an existing database, you type the command use with the database name. So in our example, we'll do use MyDB1. All right. So now, essentially, we are now connected to MyDB1, right? So use MyDB1. So if you are not sure which database you are actually connected to, you can just type in select database and then parentheses. So select database. There you go. Let me actually increase my font size. I hope everyone can see it more clearly now. All right. Yeah, again, so the command is select database, and it will show you which database you are currently connected to. If you want to delete your database, it's as simple as just doing drop database name. So to do drop database MyDB1. That's it, database drop. So that database, along with all the data that it contained, is gone. It was actually an empty database, but doesn't matter. You could drop a full database using drop database MyDB1, and we'll delete it just fine. Okay, so to delete, again, this optimization that you can check if a database already exists. Just to show an example, let's say you say drop database MyDB2, which doesn't really exist. So now we're going to see an error. If you want to prevent these kind of errors, and especially when you're running scripts, it's really useful to have. If exists, there you go. And now we do show databases. There you go. MyDB1 is gone. Oh, sorry. Here, there we go. MyDB1. Okay. Drop the database if it exists. Okay. Next, what we're going to do, we looked at database related operations. We saw how to create a database, how to drop a database, how to connect up to a database. Now let's look at table related operations. So a database contains one or more tables. So let's look at some. So if you're curious about how many databases are in tables are in that database, uh, so of course first you would have connected up to a database. So if you do select databases, select database. Okay, so right now I'm not connected to any database because I just deleted the one that I was connected to. So I'm going to type in use world. So I'm going to connect up to the world database. Okay. So type in select database. So now I'm connected to world. Now I'm curious about how many tables there are in this database. So I'm going to type in show tables. Okay. I see that there are three tables in there. One is called city, another is called country, and third is called country language, which essentially maps countries to languages. Okay, three tables. So I'm curious about how do I see the specific structure of a database. Okay, so let's say we have three databases here. City. I'm curious about what fields there are, what type they are. So I can just say describe city. Okay. And there it shows me the structure. It says that there are five fields or five columns. The first column is of type integer, second column is of type char, uh, another column called country code of type char, three characters only. So it's a three-character country code. District, so essentially I guess which district the city belongs to, and the population of that city. So along with other characteristics like whether they are noun, whether it's a primary key or a foreign key, and we will get into all that later. So if you're curious about which other, let's say we had three tables in there: city, country, country language. So let's look at country. So country is a slightly larger database with lots of columns. So there's code, which I guess just has the three letter country code, the name of the country, the continent it belongs to, region, surface area, population, things of that sort. Head of state, capital. Okay. So essentially, we'll be using describe table name to see the structure of a table. All right. So now let's say we want to create a table. Okay. So we can go and say, so inside this world database, let's just create one. Say create table. Let's call it my table one. Okay. This is the magic of the shell that it lets you complete your command with a semicolon. So it detects a semicolon as the end of the command. So we said create table table one. So we can't just create an empty table. We also have to define that what the columns will be, what the types of the column will be. So let's say we'll create my call one, which will be the first column, and let's say we want it to be an integer, right? Then we're going to create my call two, which let's say we want to be a varchar length 20, let's say. Okay. If we want to add more columns, just append a comma at the end, or just if you don't want to, that will be the last column. Okay. Close the parentheses and end with a semicolon. There you go. So now we've created a table with two columns. One column is called my call one, and it's of type integer. Another column is called my call two, it's of type varchar, max length 20. So now we can look at the structure of my table one. So we just say describe my table one. There you go. See my call one, type int, my call two, type varchar 20. Int 11 doesn't mean 11 bits. What it really means that when it displays an integer, integer is four bytes, so 32 bits. So depending on whether it's signed or unsigned, it can be 0 to 2 raised to 32 minus 1, or it can, if it's signed, then it goes to, I believe, 0 to 2 raised to 31 minus 1, and on the negative side, minus 2 raised to 32 minus 1. And on the positive side, it will go to 0 to 2 raised to 32, 31, yeah, 0 to 2 raised to 31, yeah. So it just means that it will display only the first 11 characters. Just a second here. Okay. All right. Everyone with me so far? Okay. So two columns, my call one, my call two. Okay. And let's look at the other. If you want to delete oh, it should say delete existing table. My bad. So let's say you want to delete that table. Okay. So essentially you can drop the table. So let's say that my call to, we're not happy with it. We want to drop that table. So let's say drop table my call to. Okay. Oh, sorry. My table two. Sorry, you can't drop a column. We can. We will get into that later. Let's say we'll drop the table. My table one. And that's it. So essentially, we created a table here. We defined what columns we want and what are the data types of those columns. And here we drop the table. Okay. We can also alter it. Let's run the same command again. So we are going to recreate the table. And we're now looking into altering the table. Okay. So let's say how to add a column. So the command says alter table name, add column, and you can go add a column. So let's do that. So let's say alter table my table two, and let's say add column. I can actually do it on the next slide. So add column, and let's call it my call three. Okay, and this time we want it to be a varchar 25. Oh, sorry. Alter table my table one, then add column. There you go. And now if you describe my table one, you see that my column three has now been added. Initially, you only had my call one and my call three. Now we've added my call three. Okay. So that's how you add a column. You alter the table and then add column. Okay. All right. How about modifying columns? So let's say you added a column. Now you want to change the type of the column, or you want to expand it from a varchar 25 to a varchar 50 or something like that. So the command to do that is alter table again, but instead of adding column, you'll be modifying column. Okay. So let's say alter table my table one, okay, same as before, and you'll say modify column, and you'll identify the column my call three. Okay, so let's look at the command again. Modify column my call three, and along with the new data type. So let's say my call three, you want to change from a varchar back to an int or a double or something like that. Let's say double. So now you do it. Now, if you describe my table one, you'll see initially it was my call three was a varchar. Now it has changed to a double. So that's how you alter the type. Okay. And finally, you can drop an entire column itself, delete it by using the command alter table, and then drop column. So let's say we are not happy with, or we don't need my call three for some reason. So let's say alter table my table one, then drop column my call three. And now we describe it. There you see, my call three is now gone. Everyone with me so far? If you have any questions, feel free to post to the YouTube live chat. So far, I don't see any questions, so I'm guessing everyone's doing fine and following along. So we'll proceed to the next slide. Okay. Any questions? Okay. Similar, right? So we have a student here in our classroom as well. So just asking him if he has any questions, and he seems to be following along perfectly, no doubt. Good. All right. All right. So now let's look into something called as constraints. So for columns, we've defined their data type, whether they are integers or whether they are strings. But we can additionally also define some constraints on the column. So for example, by default, when you declare anything as int or varchar or whatever the data type is, it's also possible for that column to be null. So one second. Just getting a couple of questions here. So Vivek, one of our viewers, is asking, can we change the name of the column? Yes, we can, I believe. If you just, I'll have to look it up, but generally you can add a new column and with the new name and delete the old column. That's how I've done it. Is there a column rename? I honestly don't remember if there is a column rename. Let me just check the MySQL documentation. It's actually the best part about MySQL. So say column rename. So there is alter rename table. Okay. So there is alter table, which is what the command will be using, and add column, drop column, and there is a rename, which I'm not sure whether it allows you to rename the column. Let's try it out. No, I don't think actually it does. So to rename a column, I'm pretty sure you'll have to add a new one and then drop the old one. I might be wrong here, but what I can do is I'll take this note and I'll follow up with Vivek after this workshop. It's a good question, Vivek. I didn't think of this. All right. Good question. Please keep the questions coming. This is good. Sometimes we learn just by teaching. Okay. Okay. All right. So constraints. Okay. So like I mentioned, the column can be null. So it's possible for a column to have a null value. But if you want columns to like strictly have data, so you can say column is, you can define the column as not null with a not null constraint. So while creating the column, we create the column using create table or alter table. So you can say column, you can define the type, which is int, and you can say not null. Right. So that way you'll ensure that while you're inserting values, you cannot insert null values. The user cannot insert null values. So you're guaranteed that whatever data exists in that column will have valid value. So let's look at an example here. So let's say, so we have our table, my table one, my call and my call two. Both of them are nullable columns right now. So let's alter one. So let's alter table, my table one, and let's say modify column, my call one. Keep it int, but let's say not null. Okay. So this ensures that the column is not, my call one is not nullable. My call two is nullable, but my call one is not nullable. Okay. right? So now if you look at describe my table one, see the difference here? It's not nullable. So sorry about that. Okay. The unique constraint. So unique constraint ensures that each row or each record in the column will have a unique value. So this is great if you're creating an index or something of that sort. So let's say you want to assign a personnel number or serial number. So having that unique constraint is good. Let's say you're, something like the Aadhaar card. I'm grossly oversimplifying the example, but you want to ensure that everybody's Aadhaar ID is unique, right? So sticking that unique constraint in there definitely helps. Uh, so similarly, right, while creating a table, you would say int whatever the type is and unique, and it can be applied for ints, for text, dates, varchar, whatever data type you choose, you can apply the unique constraint. So let's take a example here. So let's say along with that, in the previous example, we are altering table my table, we are modifying the column my call. It's of type int, we have specified the constraint not null, and we also want to make sure that it is unique. It serves as some sort of an ID. Go in there, and now describe my table, and you see something called as key. So that has essentially been converted into something called as the key, primary key, which guarantees uniqueness. So all the records in that column are guaranteed to have unique values, no colliding values. Okay. All right. So primary key is essentially that. Primary key is a combination of the not null constraints and unique. So if you definitely want everyone to have an Aadhaar ID, for example, you want to ensure that the Aadhaar ID column has no null value, so it has to have valid value, and they have to be unique. So that essentially makes it a key. Key is something that helps you uniquely identify a row, right? So that's essentially the primary key. Primary key can be a single key, like a single column, or a composite primary key can be composed of multiple columns. And let's take a look at that, right? So let's set int not null, or we can just say int not null, and then MySQL doesn't allow you to, I believe it doesn't allow you to specify primary key on the column setting itself. You'll have to define the primary key for the entire table. So if you're using SQL Server, you could have just typed in primary key, but here you just have to put a comma and say primary key my call one. I believe that's the right syntax. Just check primary key column. Yeah. Modify column one. Huh. Syntax. It looks like something has gone wrong. Okay. Let's say if you can see if you can set the primary key. Oh, there we go. Add. Or let's say my call 3, make it an int, and like that. See this one. There we go. So describe my call, my table. All right. So you can see that primary key is now set on my call 3. Similar to primary key, there is also a concept called as foreign key. So this is essentially when you have one table referencing another table. So the foreign key constraint ensures that whatever value, let's say table B references a foreign key on table A. So that essentially means that whatever values that are coming into that column for table B need to be existing in the key column on table A. Is everyone following along? If you have any questions, feel free to ask me in the chat window. So again, foreign key ensures that, so let's take a simple example, right? So like I said, Aadhaar card is a primary key, right? So it guarantees that it's not null and it's unique as well. So using the Aadhaar card, let's say we have a table called Indian citizens, right? Just as an example. So every Indian citizen has an Aadhaar ID, technically. So let's say that happens. We have a table called Indian citizens. So the primary key is the Aadhaar card. So let's say we want to track the employment of all the Indian citizens. So we'd be tracking that in a separate database. To link the people and their employment back to the original things, we ensure that we have a column called Aadhaar ID in the second database, in the employment, in the employment table, the second table, and it links back to the primary key using something called as a foreign key. So let's just show with an example. I think that will make the thing simpler. So I'm going to delete my original database. So let's drop database my table 1. It's actually easier to demonstrate with an example. Sorry, drop database my db1. Sorry, drop table. So drop the table. Okay. So show tables. There are 3 tables here. So let's create table. Let's call it citizens. Sorry, let's call it my citizen. I'm preparing it with my, just so that we know that it was not an original table in the world database. So let's say create table, add column, ID, and column ID. Add column ID, call it int, add column name, just name, char 5. Okay. Oh, 1 second. Come on there, add column name, at 25. Okay. And primary key ID. Okay, so essentially what's happening is we are creating, we are ensuring that the ID is the primary key for this table. Yeah, so syntax error. That actually happened. Oh, okay. So ID is an integer, name is a varchar, and primary key. Okay, there we go. So now describe table my citizens. You see, it has a name, it has an ID, and it has a name. So let's say if we insert some values here. So insert into my citizens values. This is how we actually insert into a database. Let's say ID 1 and give it my name, Shambha. Okay. Okay. And uh, insert another value. Let's call it Sachin Tendulkar. Okay. Insert one more. Let's say Virat Kohli. Okay. So here, if I just enter it, it's going to show an error because this one already the value already exists. So if I insert, say, duplicate entry, right? So you have to ensure that it's a unique key. So that's the concept of a primary key. Values have to be unique, right? So now we've entered. Okay. Right. So now we have this thing. Let's say select star from. This is extracting all the data. So my city. All right. So essentially, it shows that there are three entries in that table. So ID is the primary key. So there's ID 1, which is Mithun Sharma, ID 2, which is Sachin Tendulkar, and ID 3, which is Virat Kohli. So now let's go ahead and create another table, which essentially maps players to their highest score. So let's create a table. Let's call it create table. Create table my highest score. Okay. And here, let's have high score, which will be an integer. Okay. And player, which will also be an integer. And now we have to ensure that the player this column refers to the ID column. So let's just instead of calling it player, let's call it player ID, right? And now we add the foreign key. So we have to link this player ID to this ID on the my citizens table. Okay, so you would say foreign key and the name of the column references the table name and my column. Okay, so you say foreign key, and the foreign key is player ID references. Okay. The table we are referencing is my citizen, and the column we are referencing is ID, right? Essentially, my player ID references ID in my citizens. Okay, so this ensures that whatever values we are inserting into player ID has to be a valid value in the ID column in the my citizens database. So let's go ahead and get an error here. Create table my highest score, high score int, player ID int. See what mistake did we make? made a spelling mistake here. Okay, another error. Looks like we made another typo here. Let's take a look. Yeah, of course. My citizens. Okay, there we go. Okay, so now we've created this. So now if you describe my highest score. Thank you, Prashant, for pointing this out. So reminds me I should use simpler names for my tables and databases next time. Okay, there you go. So player ID, you see this MUL, it essentially means that it's a foreign key, referencing to a key in another database. Okay. Just a second. Okay. Now, so now we have 3 entries in the My Citizens. So here, if I try to insert let's say I insert a value here. So in the My Highest Score, so insert into My Highest Score values. Let's say 1, which is the player ID, which in the My Citizens table refers to Mithun Shandar. And let's say my highest score is 15 runs. Let's say I'm not a good batsman. Right. Insert into my score value. Oh, it's the other way around, sorry. So it's 15, comma 1. Okay. So the high score followed by the player ID. Okay. There we go. Let's say for Sachin Tendulkar, I believe his highest score in one-day internationals is 200. Yeah, I think so, right? Maybe 234. I forget. Okay. And Virat Kohli, let's just say it's 200. He might have scored more. I just don't know. So, right. But if we try to use an invalid ID, let's say 7 or something like that. So we know that there is no player with ID 7 in the My Citizens table. So this will show an error. Okay. So it says can't add or update a child row. Foreign key constraint fails, which is correct because there is no ID 7 in the My Citizens table. So remember that player ID is a foreign key on that table, right? So it's a foreign key on the ID column of that My Citizens table. Because there is no value 7 here, inserting something as 7 here on the My Highest Score table will definitely fail. Okay. So now, right, let's go to the next constraint. Default constraint. This is just to assign default values, right? So like I said, this is pretty useful for like nullable fields. Like if you, if you don't assign any value, MySQL will like assign a default value if you have that constraint. So the syntax to do it is create table my table, and then type, and you can use it for varchar, you can use it for date, time, timestamps, anything. You can assign a default value. So if you alter a table to include add the default constraint, then it will go through every affected column which is null, and then it will apply the default value. So you might want to be careful there. Okay, let's get into adding, deleting, and updating data. And we actually saw a couple of examples while we were doing the foreign key example. So to add a new row, you essentially use the insert into table statement. So insert into the table, here are the values you want to add. Okay. So as an example, insert into, so let's insert into, let's create a new player, My Citizens. Okay. So insert into My Citizens. Let's say values 4, and let's introduce a new player here. Name of player. Rahul. Did we add Rahul from it? Yeah, no, let's add Rahul from it. There we go. So now we've added four entries there. So if you do select star from my citizens, you'll see four entries there, right? Now note that we added both the ID and the name. ID is mandatory and name is, I believe, name is not mandatory. Or is it? Describe name, describe my citizen. Okay. So name can be null, right? So here in the previous example, when you did an insert, right, you inserted values for both columns, both the ID and the name. ID is compulsory, name is nullable. So technically what this means when we can do this, insert into my citizens, okay, and let's say I only want to add the ID column and not do anything for the name column, right? I can do this, my citizen and in brackets ID, and then say values, or or sorry, the other way around. I can say values 5. So essentially, it's going to create a player with an ID but with no name. Okay, there you go. So now, see this. So we've created a player with ID 5, but the player has no name. Okay. So essentially, you can use the insert into statement to add values to all columns or for specific columns, like we did here. Like we only added values for ID column. Okay. So add data in all columns or data in specific columns. Same example. All right. How to update a row? Okay. So now we've seen that we've added an ID 5, but we've not named the player. So let's go ahead and update the row. And we have to be a little bit careful here. So the syntax is, look at it again. So insert into table. Okay. So insert into my citizens. Okay. And the column that we are going to modify is name. Okay. We're going to say set name equals Saurav Ganguly. Okay. And here's the most important part. You have to specify a where clause. Like you have to specify which columns you're going to go update. Okay. So this is important, else it will update every single row in the specified column. So which is definitely not what you want. So you only want to update a couple of records, maybe one or a few records. So it's important for you to identify those rows or records. So you use the where constraint. So you say where ID equals 5. One second, I made a syntax error here. I'm forgetting the second. It's update, not insert it. Okay. There you go. So now if we do select star my citizens. Because see, initially this was set to null, and now we updated the record to change the name to server company. Okay. I have a mistake in my slide. I think I did a copy paste error. So the syntax is update table name and then set uh, set the column value to whatever you want. But you have to, the important thing is you have to identify which row that you want to affect. If you had dropped this where clause, if you had forgotten to include this where clause, you would have seen that every player would have now been named as server company. That's definitely not what we want to do. Okay. All right. So going back. Okay. How to delete rows? So again, when deleting rows, you have to be careful to identify which row you want to delete. So the where condition is important. So let's say we don't want Rahul Dravid for whatever reason. So we can go and say delete from my citizens where ID equals 4, or we could have said name equals Rahul Dravid. Let's try that. Name Rahul Dravid. Okay, there you go. And now you run it. You see the record with Rahul Dravid and ID 4 is now. So that's how we delete a record. Okay. To delete all the rows, you would do delete star from my table. I don't recommend doing it unless you're absolutely sure about this. All right. So now we looked at previously we looked at data manipulation, how to insert, update, and delete a row, delete one or more rows. Now let's look into how to query rows. Okay. How are we doing for time? Oh, we still have time. It's 8:30. All right. Any questions so far? Just gonna check the YouTube chat window, see if there have been any questions. Okay, looks like there are no questions. If you have any questions, please post on the YouTube chat window. Okay. All right. So now let's proceed on to data query statements. So unlike manipulation statements, where you actually edit a database by inserting, updating value, inserting a value, updating a value, or deleting a value, query statements are read-only statements, right? So essentially use the where clause. So as an example, you'll be running select star. Star means select all columns from my citizens. Okay. So that extracts all the records in that table. If you only want to extract, let's say ID 3 onward, so you can say where ID. So the where clause is important. The where clause is essentially the select clause is what extracts it. The where clause is what filters it. So where ID greater than 3, let's say greater than 3, yeah, greater than equal to 3. So that's going to select Virat Kohli and Saurav Ganguly. There you go. Right. So select is the query that reads data. Where is the thing that filters the data? Okay. So going back to the slides. All right. So let's look at filtering operations. So going back to our database, we had a, when you go to show tables, remember you had the city, country, and country language, right? The my citizens and highest score were the ones that we created. So let's take a look at the city, country, and my citizens. So let's say we have to extract cities in USA, okay? So Let's look at the structure of the city database. Describe city. You have your ID, name, country code, district, and population. Okay, so our assignment right now is to extract cities that belong to the country USA. So if I just type in select star from city, this is going to dump every single city in the world. Okay, so there you see 4,079 rows, 4,079 cities. So, and you can see here, this is Nigeria, this is Mexico, I guess this is Latvia, Korea. So we just want to extract the ones that are in USA. So the USA country code will be USA. So we can say select from star from city where country code and the awesomeness of MySQL on Mac is it's case insensitive, so you don't have to type. You can type it in as country code, and it will work just fine. This will also work. Equals USA, or you could do USA. There you go. So 274 rows. Okay. So these are extracted all the cities in USA, right? So all cities with country code USA. There you go. So here's the name of the city, and here's the country code. Okay. So essentially, we've filtered down. So without the where clause, it would be returning some. The result set would contain some 4,000 rows, 4,079, I believe. So now we want to filter it to just cities in USA. So now we get 274. So that's how the filter clause works. The where clause. Okay. Look at the next one. Extract cities in USA with a population greater than 1 million. Okay. So the way to do that. So we've already extracted cities in USA. So we can additionally add the AND operator. So we are enhancing our filter clause, the where clause, and we can say if you remember our when we describe the city, we see population here, right? So now we want to extract only cities that have a population greater than 1 million, so like large metropolitan cities. So we could say and population greater than 1 million. 1,000, 10,000. Yep, that's 1 million. There you go. So there are 9 cities in USA with population greater than 1 million. Okay. There you go. This part. Sorry. This part. Okay. Okay. So similar to the AND clause, we can also use the OR clause. Okay. So here, extract cities in Sweden or cities anywhere in the world with population greater than 1 million. So we will just go ahead and modify that to OR and just to Sweden. Okay. So it's going to extract all cities which are in Sweden or anywhere in the world with population greater than 1 million. Right. So this is straightforward. So now we have 252 rows. So example, Russia has a population greater than this city called Kazan or Omsk, which has a population greater than 1 million. Okay, that or any Swedish cities. So these definitely have population less than 1 million, are included in the list because of the OR clause. All right, straightforward so far. Okay, let's look at a couple more. Let's look at wildcards. Wildcards and the like expression. So extract countries starting with B. So if you have a text, if you have a column which is of type char varchar, then essentially you can use this, right? So you can say country code or so what was our challenge here? Find extract countries, not cities. Countries starting with B. Okay, so we need to look at a different table. So let's go to describe country. Okay. This has a lot of columns. So there is code, there is name. I guess name will suffice. So we can say select star from country where name like, okay, and because it's a string, you have to specify the literals. The name starts with B, and as you are familiar with wildcards, here, if you're familiar with the wildcards in Windows or DOS, it's essentially dot is one single character and a star is one or more characters, right? So here, similarly, instead of the asterisk star, you use a percentage sign, right? So this will list all countries where name starts with B. Okay, there you go, 20. So Botswana, British Indian Ocean Territory, Bowe Island, Bhutan, Brunei, all that, right? So Belgium, Burundi, Bangladesh. So name starts with B. Okay, so the way to do it is when name like B, and then you use the wildcard percentage sign, which means zero or more characters. Okay. Uh, let's say we only want to extract countries starting with B and ending with A. Okay, so we just modify our previous example. So starts with B, then zero or more characters, and with A. And again, this is case insensitive, so there you go. So now it has returned 5 rows. So Bulgaria, Bosnia Herzegovina, Bermuda, Bolivia, Botswana all start with B and end in A. Okay. Straightforward. Extract countries which have 5 letters in their name. Okay, so here we have to use a different wildcard. So the one complementing the percentage sign is the underscore one. So select star. So here we go. So we have 5 letters. So each underscore says one character. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There you go. So we have 26 countries with 5 letters in their name, like Samoa, Tonga, Syria, Sudan, Qatar, Nepal. Right? Straightforward. Okay. Extract countries with no head of state. Okay, so this we are looking at nullability. Okay, so if we go back to the table, you'll see something called as head of state, this char. So we want to find a country which has no head of state. So select star from country where head of state is null. Straightforward. It looks like there is one country, San Marino, which does not have a head of state. The head of state is null, right? So that shows us how to use the is null operator. Okay. So extract countries which have heads of state, right? So we just flip that one and say is not null. We have 238 countries which have heads of state. Straightforward. I think we have made a mistake here. Copy paste error. Okay, extract countries beginning from letter W onwards. Okay, you can also use this name greater than W. So this means that there's a literal comparison. So anything greater than W will show up here. So Western Sahara, Wallis and Futuna, Yemen, Yugoslavia, Zambia, Zimbabwe, 6 countries show up there. Okay, so 6 countries with names beginning with W onwards. And finally, we'll use the final operator between and. So extract countries with population between 10,000 and 20,000. So to do that, we'll say select star for country where population between, we could have used greater than 10,000 and less than 20,000, or we can use this operator called between 10,000 and 20,000. So this is good if you are specifying a series. Okay, so it shows 7 results in that set. So Cook Islands, Montserrat, Nauru, Palau all have a population between 10 and 20,000. Okay? And it includes the extreme values themselves. It includes both 10 and 20,000. All right. So that's filtering. Now let's look into ordering. How to order by. Okay. So right now, uh, let's say going back to our previous example, select star from my citizens. You see it's ordered by ID but not by name. Let's say I want to order it by name, the result set. I would say select star from my citizen, order by, then the column I which I want to order by. Okay. So it's going to select by Mithun, Sachin, so M, S, and then V. Let's say I want to sort it in the reverse order. I just say order by name, descending. Okay, DESC. So that flips the order. So now you get Virat Kohli, and then Saurabh, and then Sachin, and then Mithun. Right. So the order is flipped. You're getting a question? So okay, let's take a look at the question. Okay, no questions. Okay, sorry, false alarm. Okay. If you do have any questions, please raise them on the YouTube live chat. Our moderator is paying very close attention. Um, Prashant is our moderator. He's also our instructor for the JavaScript and web front-end web development courses. So say hi to him. All right. So sort countries by name, sort countries by population descending, and the descending thing can be ordered for applied for integers, character, for char, varchar, anything. Right? There's a sort order for integer for strings. It is dependent on character sets and collations, which I'm not going to get into right now. Okay, sort countries by continent and then by population. Okay, so select start from country, sort countries by population, and then by sort by continent and then by population. So you can combine or like you can define the sort order, right? You can sort on column A and then on column B and then on column C. So let's say order by uh, continent, okay, which is a column, okay, and then you want to order by population. But if you do this, it will start with the it defaults in ascending order by default. So you want to find the most populated countries. So you want to do descending. So this means that only population will be in descending order, continent will be in ascending. So the first sort order will be on continent, and then within that it will sort by descending population. There you go. So there you are. It's a lot of rows, but there you go. China, India, Indonesia. So all of these are in the Asian continent. So within the Asian continent, it then sorts by population. And then once we are done with Asia, still on Asia here, then it goes to the most populated country in the next continent, which is Europe. Russia, followed by Germany, followed by Great Britain. Okay, and once Europe is done, then we head over to North America, which is the next thing in the sort order. The United States is the most populated country in North America, followed by Mexico and then by Canada. Okay, so that's straightforward so far. Okay, now let's look at an operator called distinct. Okay, so we want to extract unique continent name. So when you do a select statement, it can and this, select a specific column, it can return duplicate value. So let's say select continent from. Okay. As you can see, there are a lot of duplicated values because this is doing a raw fetch. So let's say you only wanted to fetch the unique value. So you could say select distinct, and there it has removed all the duplicates. Okay, so we only have the unique value. So that's the magic of the distinct operator. Okay, you can use a distinct operator to fetch a unique combination of columns, right? So here the example says extract unique combination of country code and district, right? So we go into the city table. So we say select distinct country code. What is that? Country code and district, right? So country code and district from city. There you go. So each of these combinations is guaranteed to be unique. So that's how we apply the distinct operator on a composite column. Okay, set operations. So let's say you want to combine data from two tables. Okay, so one way to do that is union. So when you use the union, it combines the result set from two select statements. So you run one select on one table and another select on one table, and then you union the result set. Okay. So each statement must have the same number of columns. This is obvious, right? You cannot union one result set which has two columns and another result set which has five columns. So the number of columns have to be the same. They also have to have similar data types, right? And they have to be in the same order. So let's say you have ID and name in the first one. You cannot have name and ID in the second one. You have to flip the order. You have to make sure that the both result sets have same data type and order which are compatible. Okay. Union allows distinct values. So union removes duplicates, but if you want to keep duplicates, you use union all instead of union. Okay, so let's look at an example. So here we are combining the list of country codes from city and country language tables. Okay, um, so country code is present in both the city table as well as country language table. So we want to get a Uber list of country codes. Okay, so we would do select country code from city. Okay, and then we would union that on the result set, select country code from country language. Okay, so that returns 238. Can even order that by country code. There you go. So this returns the Uber set. Okay, this has removed the duplicates. If you want to keep the duplicates, you would do a union all instead of union. Instead of union, you do a union all, and this will preserve the duplicates. Okay, questions? Right. Paging operations. So this is to ensure that let's say you only want you don't want the entire data set, like you only want the top 5 results from the data set. Like let's say you already have a sorted data set and you only want the top 5, or you want the first 10 and then you want to fetch the second like a good example of this is you know, when you have a large list and you only want to display 10 at a time, right? So you display 1 to 10 and on the first page, and then on the next page you would do 11 to 20 and then 21 to 30, so on and so forth. So this is what we call a paging operation. So you want to constrain the number of rows returned in the result set, right? So the way to do that is like this. So let's say we want to extract top 5 countries sorted by population. Okay, so let's first sort by population. So select star from country ordered by population descending. Okay, so that gives us 239 rows. Start with probably China and India. So let's say we are not interested in all 235. Let's say we are only interested in the top five. The syntax for that would be limit 5. Okay. So this is again a little different from how it works in Microsoft SQL Server. In Microsoft SQL Server, instead of using limit, you would be saying select top 5 star. Okay. MySQL the syntax is a little bit different. Here you will be saying limit 5. There you go. So now it has returned the top 5. Okay. So now you can also do like top 10. Okay, there you go. And now let's say we displayed the top 10, and now we are interested in getting to number 11 to 20. Okay. So now we can use the offset and length. So we can say 10, which is essentially this is 0 base, so it's going to pick up the 11th one, and then we want to take 10 from the 11th one, so 10 to 20. This is going to pick number 11, which is Mexico. So after Nigeria, the most populated country is Mexico, right? So a quick way to verify that would be, let me just walk you through an example. Okay. So let's say select name from country, order by population descending, limit 10. Okay. There you go. So China, India, United States, Indonesia. So let's say I just want to display the top 3. Right? China, India, United States, China, India, United States. Okay, now let's say I want to display number 4, 5, and 6. So I'd be using the offset to identify 4. So since it is 0 base, it will be offset 3. So 0 is 1, 1 is 2, 2 is 3, 3 is 4. So if I want to pick up Indonesia onwards, so if I want to pick up Indonesia, Brazil, and Pakistan, which is 4, 5th, and 6th, so I would say offset 3, comma 3. Okay, so it's going to pick the 4th, 5th, and 6th. Indonesia, Brazil, Pakistan. In case I wanted to pick Indonesia, rest of them, so like rest of the top 10 list, starting from Indonesia, so offset would still be, so this is offset 0, so China would be at offset 0, offset 1, offset 2, offset 3, correct? And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So let's say I want to pick up 7 starting from offset 3. There you go. So Indonesia to Nigeria, I've picked up everything. Okay, so that's how the limit operator works. So okay, how are we doing for time? It's almost 9 o'clock. So we'll be, I think we'll be running another 15, 20 minutes. Okay, so aliasing operation. So alias is when you want to assign a temporary name to either a column or a table, right? So a temporary or a readable name, right? And this alias, however you pronounce it, exists only for the duration of the query. Okay, so let's say we want to alias column name. So an example would be, so say select name from city. Okay, so instead of say limit 5. Okay, so here are 5 things. So the column name is called name. Okay, let's say we want to rename that temporarily. We call it world cities. Okay, there you go. So you've aliased world cities, which is now same as name, but in the result set it will be returned. Note that aliasing doesn't actually rename the column. The column is still called what it originally was called. So if you describe or dump the schema of the table, you'll see it's still called name, But here in our result set, it's renamed to world city. Okay, and you can actually use that in. So here as an example, we can say order by world cities. You can use that alias within that query. Okay. Around. There you go. This is descending order, and these are the last 5 world cities. Okay. You can also alias a table. Example here is you're selecting name and population from country, and you call you want to call alias country to C, and you can use C, like you can use database dot table, right? So C dot name is New York. So, let's say select name from city as C, where C dot name New York. I don't know about me of explaining this, but there you go. So we used C, which is an alias for city, the table name city. So we've aliased the table name. Okay, we can alias columns as well as table names. Okay, aggregation operators. So aggregation is usually combined with grouping. So let me quickly run through this. So let's say you have a series, like a series of data, and you want to aggregate the data, either find out the min value, max value, average population, or the count. Well, let's say one of the most common things is you want to see how many rows are there. You would do select count, do this count of number of rows. So from city. So that shows you there are 4,079 cities, 4,079 records in that data in that table. You can even say names. It is the same thing. Okay. Interesting thing here is, like, let's say you want to combine the populations of all the countries, and you want to see what's the world population at. So instead of count, you would do sum. Okay, sum population from country. Okay. So this is, I believe, something like 6 billion is the world's population when you combine the population of each of those countries. You want to find out the country with the max population. So you can do a sort by, so order by, and then limit one, or the easier way to do it is max. Okay. This is the country, China, the max population. Similarly, min. Okay. So there's a country with 0 population as well. Okay. So like I mentioned before, these aggregation operators are usually used with group by functions, right? So with grouping. So let's say grouping essentially groups the result set using a key that you define. So the key can be an ID, or it can be a name, or it can be something like, odd numbers or even numbers. So using that, you essentially split up the result set. Okay. So and it's often used with aggregate functions like count. So as an example, um, in the previous one, let's say uh, select country by select name from country, country, and then we'll group them by continent. Okay. Uh, okay, so there we go. So the important thing to realize is only you can only use aggregated columns. So that means you can either use count, max, min, sum, average, or the group key. Okay, those are the only things that you can use in the select statement. So non-aggregated columns cannot be used. So in our example, name is a non-aggregated column, so it cannot be used in a group by. So there are ways around this, but I'm not going to get into that. So let's say, so instead of name, okay, so here are your continents, so your group continents. Okay, so select continent from country and group by continent. Okay, and now let's say for each continent, you want to find the country with the max population. Can do max population. Okay, so because max is an aggregated column, we can use it in this select statement. There you go. So here's the population of Asia. Here's the country with the max population, which is China. Here's the country with the max population in Europe, which is Russia. You can even do a sum of it, right? Let's say you want to find the total, you want to group the continents, and you also want to display the sum of the population. So this is the total population of Asia compared to the population of Europe and compared to the population of North America. That's how we use a group by statement. So another example, group Swedish districts by total population. Okay, so this is an example of using a group by along with where clause, where country code is Sweden, and then you do a sum group. Okay, we're not going to walk through that example. Okay. All right. Now we come to, I think we are approaching like the final few slides. Now we come to something very interesting, and one of my favorite topics to explain is the join operation. So consider, let's say you have, we saw how we unioned data from two tables, right? So another way to actually combine data from two tables is to use an operation called a join, as join. So there are four types of join. The simplest one, and the only one that we are going to look at today, is something known as the inner join. And actually, I have an error here in this diagram. Anyway, I'll get to that. So let's say you have table 1 and table 2. The inner join, when you join the data from the two tables, so the inner join refers to the data that is intersecting, which is common to both the tables. Okay, you generally join on a condition, and whatever data set is result, it will be common to both. Left outer join means the entire left table combined with the data in the intersect. Right outer join similar is the right outer table with the data in the intersect. Full outer join is like the complete combination of both tables as well as data in the intersect. And this is actually easier to explain with with an example. Again, the inner join, the diagram is wrong. It should just be this arrow. Please ignore this arrow for now. Right? So it's just the data in the intersect. So let's say, for example, we have to display continent information for cities, right? So now we have the city table, which has country information, and then you have the country table, which has the continent information. So essentially, we have to reach from the country table all the way up to from the city table all the way up to the country table to extract the continent information. So that essentially means that we have to join data from city and country table. So the way we would do it is we would select, let's say, okay, before we do that, let's just say show city, describe city, sorry. Describe city, and then we would say describe country. Okay. All right. So city has got name and country code. So country code is something that would point, is like a foreign key. Remember foreign keys? It's a foreign key into this table. So code here in this table is a primary key. So this country code field is a foreign key on the code column, which is a primary key on the country table. Okay. So that's our mechanism for joining do an inner join, right? So join data from city on the country, right? So so which helps us to get to the continent information. Okay. So as an example, so let's say select. Uh, so from the city, we are going to say name and country code. Okay. So name, comma, country code. Okay. From city. And now we are going to join that. Okay. So let's say inner join country on. Okay. Now let's look at the specific syntax. And this is a little tricky. So city is your left table. Remember our diagram? This is city. This is the country table. Okay. So city is your left table. You're joining it on the right table, which is country. Okay. And here's the join condition. City's country code must be equal to country's code. Okay. So the country codes have to match in order for you to like do a successful join. So left hand side, join on right hand side, left hand side's column, right hand side's column. Okay. The syntax is a little tricky, but this is an easy way to memorize it. So in our example, from city, left hand column, so left hand table, inner join country, country is the right hand table, on, let's go back to the left hand one, city dot country code equals, or double equals, single equals, important to remember that, country dot code. Okay. So city's country code, which is char 3 characters, and country's code, which is 3 characters, right? So I want to join on similar types. There we go. Okay, so now it says name is in the field list is ambiguous. So this is correct because both city has a name and country has a name. So it's not sure which name do you want to select. Country code doesn't have that problem because country code is defined in city, but within country table itself, it's called code. It's not called country code. So we can add an explicit qualifier. So remember I said database dot table name. So you could do that. So you could do city dot name, and just to be thorough, we'll call it. You can actually do country dot code. So essentially, it means you're having access to the result. The resultant set is a joint data from left and right table. So you can select columns from either, right? City dot name and country dot code. Okay, there you go. So this is your join table. In our previous citizen and cricketer example, we could have even, so let's say, describe my citizen. So you have a ID and a name, and you can describe my high score. What's it called? High score. Show tables. My highest score. Okay, my highest. Please remind me to come up with simpler table names and column names next time. All right. So here's my citizens with ID and name, and here's player ID and high score. So because this is a foreign key on this table's ID column, we can actually join them. So let's say select let's say name. This time name is not ambiguous because only my citizens has name. So let's say name, comma, high score, okay, from the left table, which is my citizen. Okay. Uh, so this is a little weird here because the my citizen doesn't have high score, but the resultant set will, right? So we'll say inner join. Okay. So the syntax for that is inner join the right table on. So inner join the right table, which is my highest score on. Okay, so left tables column, which is my citizen dot ID equals right tables column, which is my highest score dot player ID. Okay, so you are joining on the IDs and you are extracting the result set will contain the name of the player and their highest score. Okay, there you go. So my highest score is 15, Sachin Tendulkar is 234, Virat Kohli is 200. Okay. We do not have data for Rahul Dravid because I'm guessing because we reboot Rahul Dravid and for Saurav Ganguly, I believe we never entered a score, right? So select star from my highest score. Yeah, we only had three entries. So now this is an easy way for us to like guess instead of guessing what the player ID will be, we can just do a join and find out for sure. So once again, so if you let's see, select star from my citizen. Okay, so just explain it again. So here are the players. Players have their ID, but in a separate table, we have the same players recognized by their IDs, identified by their IDs, and with their highest score. So let's say you want to find out Sachin Tendulkar's highest score. So Sachin Tendulkar has an ID 2. So go into this table, search one with ID 2, and you find out that the highest score is 235, 234. So the systematic way to combine the data set is to run this. You select the name and high score from my citizens, inner joined on my highest score. So your inner join the left table on the right table. The join condition is that the IDs should match. So my citizens dot ID should be the same as my highest score dot player ID. Okay. So left table's primary key, right table's key. That's the join condition. And when you run that, you get this. You get the combined inner join data. This is the result set. I think that was our final slide. And for references, again, I have two really good documentation. So the first one is of course the MySQL documentation. So if you go to the MySQL website, click on documentation, click on MySQL reference manual, and you click number 5.7 is the latest generally available release. So just click on there and go to tutorial. So this is an excellent set of tutorials. You can read through it. I actually based some of my samples from this tutorial. Okay, so that's a great it's a great documentation. Other is W3 schools. So on W3 schools, go to Learn SQL, and you have a great set of SQL tutorials for beginners. So whatever we have covered today, I'm pretty sure like they have examples for all of them. So this is a great example, great web page. And one final thing I want to plug is our website. Of course, before I go to our website, yeah, of course, our website, ucode.com. Okay, so we offer a lot of workshops and certification courses. And actually, we have a certification course coming up, certification course for web front-end development. It's coming up on July 1st. So let me actually walk you through that really quickly. So this web front-end certification course, it will cover technologies, JavaScript-based technologies. So So JavaScript, Angular, jQuery, as well as HTML, CSS, and Bootstrap. So it's a 4-week certification course, 30 hours of classroom training. So this classroom training is available both at our location in BTM, so you can come to our classroom in BTM, or you can join us over webinar. So we'll organize this probably over YouTube Live or GoToMeeting or something like that. We will have 30 hours of training. So the way this is structured is every Saturday and Sunday, you will have, every Saturday you'll have 3.5 hours, and on Sunday you'll have 3.5 hours. So that's, on that weekend you'll have 7 hours of training. Repeat that for 4 weekends, so you have somewhere like between 28 to 30 hours of training. So that's on weekends. On weekdays, you'll be doing assignments based on the training that you received on the weekend. So let's say Saturday and Sunday you learn about Bootstrap or jQuery. Then the following Monday to Friday, you'll be working on assignments, and you'll be turning that assignment in by Friday. Finally, when all the topics have been covered, you will have a final project. And when you turn in the final project and meet all the project requirements, you will be handed a certificate. So it's a certification course. We priced the certification course at $12,999. So that's our introductory pricing. The topics again, once again, as I mentioned, you can actually read it up on the webpage, but very briefly, I'll mention that we cover everything related to front-end web development, JavaScript-based technologies like Angular and jQuery. We'll be teaching JavaScript itself, and then we'll be covering HTML, CSS, and Bootstrap. Prashant, who's today's moderator, will be the instructor. So Prashant is a very well-known JavaScript and web developer. He's also worked in companies like Amazon and Infosys. And he's a pretty experienced corporate trainer. He is really well-known here in Bangalore. So if you are thinking about taking this certification course, I highly recommend. You will really like Prashant's teaching style. So that's about the certification course. If you have any questions regarding this, either about today's webinar or regarding the certification course, please feel free to email us at support@sqcode.com. Actually, all the information is at the bottom of our website. So when you go to our website, you can see all of our upcoming courses. You can actually register for those courses. You can just register for them. You can actually purchase the tickets for those certification courses online. Okay, there. But the thing I wanted to show you was this, right? So here's our address. And for any questions, like feel free to email us. Support@sqcode.com is our email address. And also a couple of things, like we have a Facebook page and we have a YouTube channel. YouTube channel, if you just go and click on subscribe, like here's a subscribe button, you will get automatically notified the next time we are doing a YouTube live seminar. So if you are doing a workshop, then we are streaming it live. We'll automatically get notified if you have subscribed to our channel. Also take a couple of minutes to hit like on our Facebook page, so that will keep you updated on all the workshops and news and promotions that we have going on. And also we have our meetup group, right? So it is meetup.com/sqcode, which is I'm guessing most of you heard of us through Meetup. So meetup.com/sqcode, and you can go ahead and join our meetup group, and all our workshops and certification courses are listed here, so you can RSVP. So that's pretty much all we had for today. Once again, I thank you all for joining us, and in case of any doubts, please feel free to email us at support@sqcode.com. Thank you for joining us, and good night, and we'll see you next week. Thank you. Bye.